Well, welcome everybody to the Parkway Powerful Ideas podcast. My name is Christian Alvaro, and I'll be hosting. And I'm joined here by Todd Billen and Michael Niebuhr, who are both a part of the Parkway team. Todd, why don't you go ahead and give people a little bit of your background?
Hey everyone, how you doing? Hey, so I'm kind of the old. You'll figure this out real shortly. I'm the old man in the group here. So I've been at this audio video business for quite some time. I come from a family-owned company that I started at a young age and worked my way up through that company until I eventually owned it, and actually through acquisition became a part of Parkway. I'll tell you a little more about that story later. But I guess I'm the old man. I've just been at it for a long time, back to the analog world and now into digital. So that's just a little bit about me.
That's awesome. Yeah. And Michael, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I have been in this industry, I think, since 2001, so going on 20 years. And I started in the recording industry. I studied recording engineering.
That's right, you did.
I continued that path and ended up finding myself in live sound in a large church in Chicago. Spent some time at Willow Creek, and it was a fantastic experience. So I ended up pursuing that career, and through many channels ended up at the church that I currently serve at. I was on staff there for over 10 years as the lead front of house audio engineer, and was able to just really dive into that and really hone the craft. And left a few years ago to join Parkway.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I have a similar kind of background to Michael. I started myself in making records. I was a recording artist, and studio time was really expensive. And so I decided to learn the trade and mentored and worked for free at a bunch of recording studios. And then I started serving at my local church. And that slowly progressed into like a 12 to 15 year time span of working for 4 different large churches as their technical director. And then recently, I joined the Parkway team, and here we are. The 3 of us make up the business development team at Parkway, and we love working with clients and helping them come up with great solutions for whatever their project is, whatever their vision is. We want to come alongside and help them in their pursuit. But for those that may not know who Parkway is, what we do, maybe they know that we do electrical, or maybe they know that or think that we only do audio and video. Todd, would you mind just breaking down for our listeners who Parkway is and what we do?
Absolutely, Christian. So Parkway at its core, actually back all the way to the 1940s, 1950s, started off as an electrical contracting company. The Achterhoff family are the people who founded Parkway, and they started as a normal electrical company, doing a lot of home installation of electrical stuff back in the day. That company continued to grow and progress, and I could go into a real long story on this, but because it's hard to say what we've become. I will tell you that there's a very few companies in the United States that looks like Parkway. There are a lot of electrical companies that have begun to develop communications divisions, but there's very few that have done it at the level that Parkway has, either through acquisition, like the company that I sold to Parkway, which was a company called ASCOM, dating back to the late 70s as an audio and video communications provider, to hiring guys like Christian and Michael that are on this with a lot of great experience in audio and video. But so if you look at us today, we've obviously progressed into, and I guess I'd go back and say that the difference that between Parkway and a lot of your other electrical contracting companies out there that have communications divisions is that Parkway does the higher end stuff as well. So a lot of you'll find a lot of electrical contractors that do low voltage cabling systems. They do security. They do a little bit of paging. They do a little bit of this and that. A lot of category cabling systems are done by electrical contractors now, but Parkway takes that whole thing to a whole new level. So you'll find us in the high end churches, the real more contemporary churches that are in the area that are doing a lot of audio, video, and lighting. We handle all that kind of stuff, but you'll also find us in stadiums and in arenas, convention centers, museums, places in a lot of the major venues around the Grand Rapids, Michigan, and in Michigan areas are all holding systems that Parkway has done. So we take that whole electrical contracting and communications contracting, and we've actually merged in with a full-blown professional audio, video, and lighting division all under one roof. So it makes us quite unique. There's not a lot of other companies around the United States that look the way we do. So that's about as short as I can make it.
Oh, that's great.
There's
that's
a lot
great.
of pieces and parts to that, but anything under one roof that involves wireless, or any type of communication system within a building, which makes us very unique because we're kind of a soup to nuts. We can do it all under one roof.
Yeah, and I love that.
Security and card access, hearing loops.
Shameless plug right now.
Yeah.
This is it. This is the shameless plug time. Yeah, but we do all that, and what's great is that we can do it all under one roof. And so when it comes to a lot of vendors having to speak to one another and try to coordinate, it's nice when it's all under one roof where the communication is going to be flawless and it's going to be seamless, right? Because we all play on the same team. Not that we wouldn't with another company, but it's when it's under one roof, it's like, hey, we have easy access to one another. And so that's great.
One way I like to explain that is that from a customer perspective, you see a very well-oiled machine. What the customer doesn't know, that all the arguments and all the disputes are happening back at the office, not on their site. So
yeah, that's good.
We're still all a little bit different, but from the customer standpoint, whether that be the direct customer or a contract manager or a construction company, is that we show a unified front out front. So it becomes a much smoother process for those that we're doing work for.
Yeah, and I love that, and I've loved my experience so far.
Not that we argue, the three of us. We always agree.
No, we always agree. We're like one mind.
Every time.
We're the three-headed dragon.
Across the hall.
That's right.
So, well, guys, we have to mention this, and I think we should mention this. Right now we're in the middle of the whole coronavirus. And we're all being impacted by it. I was talking with the neighbor yesterday, but we're like on our own lawns having a conversation. People are outside. Actually, I had a neighbor who had his kids do a recital with their violins for our block. And so people could kind of get closer to their house and so people are getting creative, but we all are being impacted by the coronavirus in many ways. I've had a classmate who I went to school with for 10 years actually passed away from coronavirus in New York. He lived in Astoria. And so a lot of us are being impacted by it. How is the industry what have you guys been hearing in the industry? How is that being impacted? And what are we looking at right now?
Go ahead, Todd.
Yep.
Collecting my thoughts. Sorry.
Edit point.
Yeah. Well, the tough thing to answer is where doesn't it impact?
Right.
Nobody could have seen this coming. It's amazing, and if you look at it from a Christian perspective, which we all can, is it's just strange to be isolated from people.
Right.
We're so used to coming to our churches and engaging each other. And even the three of us, here we are sitting in our, Christian's in his basement, I think, but I'm sitting in my home, what has been converted into a home office, and Michael's the same. And, we're trying to make the best of what's happening out there. And it's just tough. And from a Christian perspective, we all have people that we know that are suffering from it. and somehow we have to deal with that at a distance. It's rough. Companies are rough. Every day you hear more. I try not to watch the news too much. It gets a little depressing, but it's just crazy. Construction sites shut down and people laid off, and there's just a lot of people struggling. So
yeah, absolutely.
I think it's very odd that, my son has his 5th birthday a couple weeks ago, and, we couldn't have our in-laws over. They weren't comfortable coming over. And that's just weird.
It totally
just weird.
It totally is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. We sang a week and a half ago. One of my newest grandchildren, I have 7 of them, and we had to sing happy birthday to him on Zoom. That was weird.
Yeah.
The good thing is he's only 1. He won't remember it.
Right. Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah, I've been seeing things where people, like grandparents, will go to their grandkids' house and talk through the window. So I've been seeing some of that. So there's some interaction, but it's still weird. But at least there's something, right?
Right.
One of the things that I've been seeing a lot online is that a lot of the companies are offering right now webinars and trainings. So it's a great time to be able to interact with that, for us to grow as people, no matter what industry we find ourselves in. It's a really, really great time to be growing ourselves, so that when we get back into the workforce, we can just hit the ground running and hopefully have some new skills that we can bring to the table, no matter where we find ourselves. I know that I've been doing that. Todd, you've been sharing with us some of Danley's, which is a speaker company that we provide, and they've been doing webinars about their systems. I know that Crestron has been doing that as well. Mixed with the Masters has been doing that. So tons of different industries are doing that. And so I think that that's cool that, we can spend this time, although it can be hard. There are certain things that we can engage with that can hopefully help us grow.
We are certainly learning some new tricks. And again, as the old guy in the group, I've been forced to be drug into this a little, in a good way.
You're podcasting, man.
I know, man. It's like, if you would have told me that 5 years ago, 10 years ago,
to your resume.
Podcast? What are you talking about? Why can't we just get together and talk?
Well,
it's all good. It's all good.
That's good, man. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that you're a part of this, because we need your wisdom, But I definitely want to transition into what we're going to be talking about in this episode, which is live streaming. And so with this whole Corona thing that's happening, we are seeing that everyone is going remote, right? Everybody who can work remotely is working remotely. I have friends over at Microsoft, at Adobe. They're all working remotely. Those who can't work, like those that are at Disney, obviously they can't be at the Disney parks and, working at the moment. But so everybody is going remote, and I'm seeing people do Zoom meetings. I've been hearing from friends that a lot of people who are like graphic designers, say, right, and they're in the industry, they're actually opening up Zoom meetings for other graphic designers who they do not know, to just join them in their Zoom, and they just work on their own projects. And then they're like, hey, what do you think of this? Or, hey, what do you think of that? So there's incredible collaboration happening, which is really, really cool. Instagram Live, your favorite band, your favorite artist is just going out there singing some songs and really just trying to engage, because everything is shut down in the entertainment industry. And so they're trying to stay afloat as well. People are doing meetings through Microsoft Teams. And then obviously people are live streaming events. WrestleMania just happened. I don't know if you guys follow that. I don't, but I saw that WrestleMania happened on Saturday night, and they actually did it with no audience, like live audience. Everybody just kind of watched it online. And I know the UFC is working on something like that as well for an event coming up. So we want to take a dive into live streaming for our listeners today. At Parkway, we work with lots of churches, and one of the solutions that many have been using in recent years, even before this Corona thing, is live stream. And lots of churches did it because they wanted to give access to their people when they're sick, when kids are sick and they can't come to church, so that they can still engage, they can still get the message or still worship. And so that's been one of the solutions or one of the reasons. The other reason has been a lot of churches want to be able to offer what they do online for people to check out before they come in person. So for the new person. And so that's been another reason why people have dove into live stream. But now with everybody being quarantined and everybody being separated, we've been getting calls from people who have a live stream, but maybe they want to up the excellence or the quality of it because it's like the only way they're engaging with their people at this point. But then we have clients as well who have contacted us because they're not in the live streaming game yet. And they're like, how can we do it? And so we wanted to talk a little bit about that today. But for our listeners, Michael, can you break down what is live stream? Maybe somebody's listening to like live stream. What is that? Can you just explain that for them?
Sure. Yeah, in the simplest of terms, it's taking your live event and somehow through hardware and software, getting that into the internet, sending it over for people to either live view or to view and download later at another time. I think going back, we used to do the cassette dubs for shut-ins.
No, wait
talk
a
back
minute.
years
You're
ago.
not old enough
think-
for cassette dubs.
I think
are
Todd
you?
will remember those days. But it's similar to what we used to do, except we're able to do it in a live format now with the technology that's available.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. And so what we wanted to do was kind of dive into a little bit about the tiers. I would say there's kind of 3 tiers. There may be more, but we just want to, in simplest terms, break down if you're listening and want to get into live stream, or maybe you're at one of these tiers and you want to move up a tier. We just wanted to break down that for you. So tier 1, I would say, is using something simple, right? Like just your computer. So you can go just like you would FaceTime with your family on an iPad or on your iPhone or on a laptop. That is the simplest form of live streaming that you can do. Is you use the onboard microphone on your laptop and the onboard speakers on your computer, and you just go for it. It's very much how you do Instagram Live, Facebook Live. A lot of people use that. But there are some simple solutions. The simplest, or the one that I know of, is the Mevo camera. The Mevo camera is a simple solution where you just hook it up. It connects to your Wi-Fi. And then it has an onboard mic, and you hit go on it, and it streams right to Facebook Live for you. And so that is a very, very simple way of just putting up a camera, hitting stream or go live, and bam, your event is live at that moment. And you can push that to, say, Facebook Live or to YouTube or to various places. So that's tier 1. That's like the simplest way to kind of send out a live stream. Tier 2, I'm going to have Michael break down a little bit for you, because you recently just did this for a church, I believe, Michael. But tier 2 is basically a simple camera, some sort of broadcaster, and then using some sort of service to push it to simultaneous platform. Can you break that down for us?
Yeah, I think one of the simplest setups that we've been integrating into a lot of the customers is just a single camera going into a hardware converter. In the recent case that I did was the Blackmagic Web Presenter. I think a lot of people are kind of snagging onto that because it's simple. You feed a camera to it, you plug it to your computer, and through a couple of different software options, you can easily get your feed into Facebook, YouTube, or you can embed that into your website, which gets a little more advanced. But
yeah,
the software that we tend to use lately is OBS. Seems to play nice with Blackmagic. Simple to set up, easy to walk a customer through, easy to train them on. Yeah.
So so that people can know, for this tier 2 option, say they purchase the equipment and then they hire Parkway to come out and set it all up for them. I mean, how long are we talking to get them up and running? Putting the equipment up and then go.
Well, it depends on a couple of things. First of all, if we're bringing the camera in, and we're bringing the box in, I mean, we're only talking a couple hours. If we're trying to adapt to a current video system, whether that's new or whether that's old, depends on the installation time. So
Yeah.
in the case of this last church that I worked with, they had a full analog system, and trying to get that incorporated into newer technology, into SDI or HDMI, was quite a challenge, actually. We ended up just doing a single camera that we loaned to them, and then we installed a Blackmagic Web Presenter. So their system was so outdated that we tried every which way. We tried VGA to SDI converters. We tried S video, which I haven't seen in probably
That's like
know,
an
eight
S with a
years.
video on the front.
Yeah, it's like the DIN looks like a MIDI connection.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, it depends on what they have currently. If it's a fresh install, then it's obviously several hours.
No, yeah, thanks for sharing that. And I'm actually, my church has actually got that sort of setup. It's got a couple of more pieces to it, but kind of similar, which we'll get into in a little bit. Now, tier 3 is the next tier that we're going to be talking about. And now this is like the large churches that you know about, whether it's your Willows, Life Church, North Point, Central Wesleyan here in West Michigan, Res Life, these kinds of churches. And this tier is multiple cameras, a large switcher, separated graphics with overlay, with chroma keys and, full-blown production, audio coming from several places. So a lot more involved. And so that's the next tier. So those are kind of the 3 tiers that kind of breaks down what most of our clients or churches have at this moment. Now, before we go any further, one of the things that I thought was really interesting, guys, was this post with this pastor that I follow. His name is Dave Lomas, and he's the pastor of Reality in San Francisco. And he posted this on Instagram. You guys can go follow him. He's great. But this was his post. He said, there were actually many churches who were set up to continue their presence online. And what I learned in the last 2 weeks was what I banked on was all wrong. I never wanted to be an online church, never thought it was right. I never thought that the motivation for impact, quote unquote, and leveraging your voice, quote unquote, by being an online church were concepts that I believed in. I banked on embodied presence. Never invested in video anything, never live streamed, never was huge on social media, and I was wrong. This moment needs an online presence. It needs a different leader, one in front of a camera or a screen or a phone. And this is a young pastor. When I read that post, I was like, whoa, that's super humbling. I can't believe he put himself out there like that. But I just thought that was really special. And the irony of it all is that in recent times, people have been talking about how live stream or social media, these sorts of platforms have been separating us more, right? To where we're talking over screens, talking over technology, receiving information and giving information over the internet. And so how it's been separating us. But now we find ourselves in this position in where we find ourselves with the corona and how we're separated. And now the only thing that's actually bringing us together again is this exact same thing, social media and the internet. And so I think it's ironic, but I also think that it's beautiful. It's a beautiful way to say, hey, don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. Everything is useful, especially in the kingdom of God, right? Everything has its season, so to speak. And so I just thought that was really, really beautiful. So what I wanted to do is just ask you guys, what are you guys hearing from churches, some of your clients, or the church that you attend? What are how are they producing their services? How are they going about this right now? Are they live streaming on Sunday? Are they bringing teams in on Sunday mornings? Does it look different than that? What are you guys hearing?
You know, Christian, before we jump into that, I was just thinking as I was here listening to you read that post, which was very cool. You know, especially people of my generation, we've been, and something I haven't heard anybody say in months, you know, is our older generation. We complain all the time about these young kids that sit there and stare at their phones and talking on their phones and texting and everything else. And you know what I haven't heard? I haven't heard anybody say anything complaining about that in the last month and a half.
That's crazy.
It's just, It is absolutely ironic that
it's totally flipped now.
Yeah. What we used to complain the most
together
about is actually what's pulling people together. So,
yeah. And it's so true. It's so true. It shows you that it's all about context, really. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you do with it. Right.
Well, one of the things that I've been thinking about lately is, those that have funerals, you know, you're not allowed to have gatherings. So, you know, it's just, can you imagine, you know, you're at your funeral and there's nobody there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they have to live stream that.
Yeah. And Todd, didn't you just recently have somebody?
Yeah. So I was just going to tell you a story about, I think it was don't quote me on this exactly, but I think it was the day of or the day before the stay at home thing got put into, you know, in Michigan here. We're in Michigan, in case you didn't, if you wondered. That's where we're all located if you're a ways away listening to this. But yeah, I think it was the day of or the day before the stay at home thing that went into act. And I have a client that has several funeral homes around West Michigan. They're one of the larger ones in the area here, I think. Excuse me. Anyway, they had a funeral, and he called me, I think, an hour or two before that thing was ready to go. I don't know exactly how long it was, but he called me on the phone. He's also a friend of mine from church. And he says, dude, I got this problem, and we can't have a funeral here anymore. And people are asking me to live stream. We've just not done it before. And the crazy thing was, talking about the simplicity of this, within a half hour of just talking to him on the phone and grabbing the tools that he already had in his building, and with the help of Michael telling me what software to use and everything else, we had him up and live streaming in less than a half hour. And I never left my office. I mean, I was literally on the phone.
That's awesome.
That's awesome, man.
I said, hey, do you have a camcorder? Well, yeah, I think I got a camcorder around here. He goes, he finds this camcorder. Well, what kind of outputs does it have? Well, it's got a USB. Okay, well, plug that into your computer. Turn your computer on. Do you see an image? Well, yeah, I do. Okay, now we got to get that onto the internet, right? Mm-hmm. So I quickly put my phone up to my chest, hollered at Michael across the hall from me, say, hey, Michael, what's that software I use? He hollers back, OBS. Okay. So I says, well, you got to load up this OBS thing. And they got that up and going. And yeah, literally they were streaming a funeral service in less than a half hour. So
that's awesome.
It was kind of cool, you know.
Yeah,
and actually the coolest thing is I actually told him how to do it. That was the amazing.
The old guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I love it.
Learn new tricks.
If I would have given them to Michael, it probably would only take 15 minutes.
No, you did good, man.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, man. And so there is a huge need, even outside the church. A lot of people are engaging in this sort of way with this sort of technology. Michael, why don't you explain a little bit about the church you go to, Central Wesleyan Church, and we're both part of the same network. The church that I attend, local church, Grand Rapids, we're both part of the same church network. And it's been really, really cool to see how the churches have come together to provide something for their people. Why don't you break that down for us?
Yeah, so the way that Central has been handling a lot of the services is actually pre-recording the worship set. Generally on a Thursday, we'll bring the whole team in, and the band will do a full run through of rehearsal. We'll even still do front of house mixing to get the room feel in there. And then once the band is ready, we go ahead and hit record on the video. Also, we do a separate broadcast mix. So we have a full control room, and I get all the feeds. I actually been handling most of the broadcast mixing lately. And we'll just mix it down live as if it were a live event. Generally, the pastor is not there. He will come in at a separate time and record the sermon. This past week, we actually had another pastor, Pastor Corey from Zeal Church, that Zeal Church is in Jamaica, which is part of our network, which is the Water's Edge Network is what that's called. And he actually delivered the sermon, and that was pre-recorded and overlaid, edited together with a worship set, and yeah, there you have it.
Yeah, and our church,
Michael,
local church. Yeah, go ahead, Todd.
How much of this were you doing before this all hit, though?
Obviously we weren't pre-recording, so there was an element of production that kicked in to deliver content. But yeah, previously we were currently live streaming every week.
What was your audience size?
Our audience size was about 500 to 600. And the first week that we live streamed, we had about 7,500 that tuned in between the two services.
That's amazing. That's crazy.
And what was even cooler is sitting there watching the chat room too. There was nearly 300 people engaged in that.
That's cool.
And there's generally about 20 to 25 that jump in on that. So it was pretty cool. A lot of people tuning in from places where their church actually does not provide that kind of service. So we saw a number of people that kind of typed in the chat, said, "Hey, I'm from this church. We don't have live stream, so we're just checking this out," which was really cool. So, you're seeing a sharing of the church becoming one, I feel like, as a whole.
Yeah, for sure.
And especially with our Water's Edge network, where we brought in, 5 different worship leaders from different congregations and created one worship set to share among the 5.
Yeah, and we were one of them. And so our worship pastor Jordan went and he leads a song and gets to, have speaking points and all that. And then you guys put all that together and each church grabs their version of that. And then we've been also pre-recording the message and a host video to welcome people and all that. And then we put it all together. And again, with Corey, who's an outside teacher, part of the Water's Edge Network, we received that footage as well and put it all together. And so it's really cool to see everybody coming together because not every church that's part of our network has the budget or the manpower or the equipment that a church like yours Central has. And so being able to share that is amazing and really speaks of how we all are one church, even though we're autonomous churches out there. But that we all can work together to provide something really special for our people. So I think
got to give a shout out to Paul Van Dyke and Josiah and Dan over there at Central. They're just killing it on the tech team. So.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. Well, Todd, can you tell me a little bit about, before we jump into that, I do also know of smaller churches that are actually still going in on Sunday and live streaming because that's what they have the capability to do. They don't have a staff person who can record all these videos, pre-record stuff. So they're still going in on Sunday, very minimal staff, and just providing some really good content, a message, along with a simple, broken down worship set. And so that is another way that people are approaching this who don't have the capability to pre-record stuff, edit it, and then put it out there on a Sunday. And then there's also a range of churches that are putting out content Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, like Radiant Church in Kalamazoo. They're doing every day. They do like a devotion and a worship set for people. John Mark Comer out in Portland, he's putting out content every day. It's like short snippets of 15 minutes of like, a daily devotional or, a prayer time. And so there's a lot of that happening as well. So people aren't just doing this on Sundays, but they're doing it throughout the week through platforms like Instagram Live, Facebook Live, things of that nature, or just podcasts in general. So that's really cool.
I think it's really fun to see all the worship leaders out there that are, they're throwing a little 15-minute worship set random parts of the day.
Yeah.
My news feed is just filled with that right now.
Yeah, me too, man.
It's just cool to watch.
I was just thinking, if I could see a stat right now, I'd love to see there's probably no way of doing it, but seeing how much Christian material has hit, the World Wide Web. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Just in the last 3 or 4 weeks, how much of it is Christian based that wasn't there before. We all knew it was there before and people were doing things, but the amount of it has got to have changed drastically. So
yeah, for sure.
Right.
Well,
which is really good coming from us old dudes.
Well, Todd, you do go to a smaller church, and people got a little bit of an idea of our churches and how we've been approaching this. But what about your church? How have they been approaching just live streaming and engaging with the church in during this time?
So yeah, I go to a small church in Jenison. We sit about 300 people. So we have. I was just texting our worship director to see. We have about 350 families. I had to send him a text because I couldn't remember. Anyway, and a shout out too to our guy Eric Gladding, who just was doing a huge job through this whole thing. We wouldn't have been able to do any of it without him. But yeah, our story's a little different. So I think this past winter, I think it was in the fall, we have a handful, like most people do from West Michigan, of snowbirds. Some of the retired folks head down to Florida for the winter, and they were always wanting to watch the service. So I had a little Sony PTZ camera that I had laying around, threw it up on the back wall. We kind of pointed it at the front, sent a aux mix off of our console, to a Blackmagic ATEM television studio switcher, and basically never paid any attention to it. And the snowbirds down south loved it. They got to watch the service, but we never really paid any attention to it. We weren't mixing anything. We were just kind of throwing it out there so they could use it. Well, a month ago that changed pretty drastically. So we started using that. And I think we were having maybe 10 to 12 people that were actually jumping in on that camera every Sunday and just kind of watching, from our website. They'd log in, and it was all streamed live, but then we recorded it. It stayed there during the week, so you could go back and watch it if you want to. But we obviously started paying very close attention to it, because now we had a service. We're trying to just do the same service without any people in the seats and just streaming it. And I would say it keeps getting better. I appreciate Michael and Christian's input. I luckily have a team of people I get to call on who do this quite often, like you guys. So we try to do a better job of that. We brought in just a Panasonic, high-end video recorder type that we were using to do different recordings around church, and we put that up on a tripod. So we went to 2 cameras. But and I don't know if we're doing it in this podcast or in another, but our biggest challenge, I think we did a decent job with the video. We are all learning how to run video and how to correctly put somebody in an image and learning all those kinds of things. It's actually been quite fun. But the challenge for us, really, the biggest challenge is being to create a mix that sounds good.
Yeah, audio mix.
Yeah,
right.
Mixing with a really nice pair of speakers and a nice room and everything else is really easy compared to what you have to do to get something to sound good on a broadcast. So
yeah, it's a different beast. It's a different animal.
Oh yeah, different application.
So for 2 or 3 weeks, we've been working through that, trying different ways to do it. We do not have a broadcast studio like they do at Central that Michael sits in. So we're trying to create the same mix from our house console that we normally would for Sunday. Only now we're doing it for a closed environment, and it's not as easy as it sounds to make it sound good. But luckily we have great people. Eric, I know, is busting his tail. He's messing around on the console just about every day. And then, we thought we were doing pretty good at it. getting there. And then we had a little twist actually this past week, and one of our technical people, I know everybody out there wondering when the first time they're going to run into someone they knew personally that had the coronavirus. Well, that happened to someone on our tech team. So this week, we did not get together at all to live stream. And we actually, Pastor did a recording in his office. Eric did a little worship set in his home studio. And he basically pulled all that together and pre-recorded it and put it out on Sunday morning. So, which
That's
went
awesome.
quite well. So we've been through the gamut of things, just trying to do the best we can with the stuff we have. And I tell you, we went from 10 people to about 500. So
Streaming, yeah,
wow.
Great.
Crazy.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah, we will be actually diving into audio here in the next episode. But for local where I attend, so they were actually just using a Mevo camera, which is like this little tiny camera that has like this really wide lens on it and has a microphone on it. And so it sounded terrible. That's what they had been using. But once everything kind of happened and there was talks of things being shut down and, social distancing, that whole thing. The church decided like, hey, why don't we up the ante and really make this a better experience for everybody? And so we went through a whole load of changes, couple of cameras, a switcher, and AJA Hilo to put it out into the internet. So it's just like a streaming box, very similar to the Blackmagic. And now they're pushing that out also with their audio console feeding the mix. But they've gone through every week. We're seeing changes week to week. There's changes, just like you described, Todd, where 1 week it was like, yeah, we're coming in, we're doing the live stream. And then the next week it's like, oh man, now we got to pre-record everything and put it together and then put that out because we feel like it's safer. And so we're all like kind of from day to day experiencing something new and trying to evolve into what we need to be in order to be productive. And so I really appreciate you guys sharing that.
Yeah, and the cool thing is that I'm sure you guys are doing it and your churches are hearing of it too. I mean, our youth group is doing Zoom meetings. So our youth director is, trying to do everything he can. We have a pretty strong youth ministry at our church, and they're doing everything they can to get together. They're doing Zoom meetings, and our Facebook site is just lit up. Even our pastor, who took a 2-year away from social media, got off from Facebook altogether. Just for whatever reasons, is now back on Facebook again. So now we're posting things, and all the reasons why we got away from it, now we're running right back to it.
Right.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
So I'm not part of the next process with Easter, but I did get an email from my church asking for virtual choir members. So
you guys are like that Zoom choir I saw in the news?
We've requested people to sing a part. We've given them click tracks and everything. And
that is so cool.
They're going to upload their own part, and then the team's going to edit it together. And
I love it.
I can't wait to hear that.
We'll have to see how that turns out, man. I can't wait to see it. And, but it's so cool because we're getting so creative. I think there's a creativity aspect to this as well. And I really think it's a special time for not just churches, but for businesses, organizations to start innovating. Like, what does it look like to shift and change? And what is the new normal going to look like? What's the future going to look like? Even for schools. Of my son, he's 8 years old and he's in the 3rd grade, and he's been Zoom meetings with his teacher and classmates. He's doing Taekwondo virtually on Zoom as well. He obviously can't do soccer right now except with me, but it's really cool to see all of these industries shifting and trying to provide something for their clients or people. And so,
just an interesting thought. I had a conversation with our pastor after our last live stream, and because we were talking about whether we should up the ante. I mean, we have one camera now. We've got a tripod. We were talking about maybe we should be upping the ante right now in our church with additional cameras and equipment, broadcast room, things of that nature. And I said, that we've decided not to. We're going to stick with what we have as far as equipment right now and just do it the best we can. But the interesting thing to me will be is when this is all over, sooner the better, and we are back in church, I'm really wondering that 10 or 15 people we had on our live stream, I wonder what that's going to be when we're actually all back and worshiping. Because, we're all part of the Great Commission here, right? And if we can be, if coming out of this, even your church, all you guys' churches and everyone else out there, I wonder what if we're going to acquire a bigger audience because of what we just went through. I mean, how many people are we potentially touching that wouldn't walk in the doors of our church, but they're looking for something right now, right? This is when people look, right? People are hurting. So
they're scared and they're anxious, and we're all experiencing that right now. I think
I'd love to see our live stream go from 10 to even 50, because then I know we during this whole thing we picked up some people that wouldn't walk in the doors, but they're now paying attention, on our live stream. So it'll be cool.
I think that's awesome, and I think a lot of industries are going to learn from this, not just the church, where schools I think are going to hopefully try to find a way, because who knows how long this will last. Hopefully it only lasts the foreseeable future, and it's not nothing longer, but it just goes to show you that having things in place so that kids can still learn and people can still work is a super high priority. So what does that look like moving forward? Yeah. So I think we're going to learn a lot through this process.